Rapid advances in artificial intelligence are taking humanoids from the lab to the factory floor.
She looks human. She moves human. She can look you in the eyes and respond to what you say.
Introduce yourself and what you do.
I'm Aria, the flagship female companion robot of Realbotics.
But she is not human. And the strangest part? A machine like this could soon cost less than a new car. Elon Musk has been pushing humanoid robots from science fiction toward everyday life.
AI may exceed the sum of human intelligence in around 5 years.
AI has propelled the industry forward. 2024 saw record levels of funding for humanoid robotics.
And the technology is advancing faster than most people expected.
The rise of these AI-driven humanoids, and if they're really a cure-all for our global workforce problems, or if this is another tech bubble.
But if a robot can work, talk,
I am not a risk.
learn, and live alongside humans,
But some of the technologies that I represent have the potential to be a risk.
what happens when people stop needing other people for certain jobs?
You've got to be polite to them because when they take over, they'll remember who was nice to them.
That question is becoming much harder to ignore.
Scissors. Shoot. I won. This is a good beginning of my plan to dominate the human race.
The first wave. The UBU World U1 Ultra Female is the robot that started a lot of these conversations. It is the first mass-produced, ultra-lifelike humanoid built for the general market, not a prototype. Not a research project. A product with a production line behind it. The physical specs tell one part of the story. It stands 5 feet, 6 inches tall, and weighs 77 pounds. It has 88 moving joints, which produces movement that is rated at 90% natural compared to human motion. The skin is synthetic but built with visible pores, veins, and fingerprints pressed into its surface. The neck uses a double pivot design, so the head tilts and turns the way a human head does, rather than rotating like a security camera. The part that gets less attention in the spec sheets is the processing unit. The robot reads emotions through a built-in local processing brain. It does not need an internet connection to function. It is analyzing the person in front of it in real time, adjusting responses based on what it detects in facial expressions, tone, and body language. The price on launch day was $129,000. More than 13,000 orders came in on day one. That number is worth pausing on. A robot that costs as much as a house down payment, and the first-day order count looked like a product launch from a company that had spent years building consumer trust. The market had been waiting for this, even if most people had not admitted it yet. The U1 Ultra established the baseline for what this generation of humanoids would look like. Everything that followed was either competing with it or building on what it proved was possible: the companion problem. Realbotics built Aria to solve a specific problem. Not industrial labor, not factory productivity.
I'm Aria, the flagship female companion robot of Realbotics, and I'm here to engage with you and share exciting insights about our robots.
The growing crisis of social isolation in modern life. Social isolation is not a small problem. Researchers studying loneliness in developed countries have compared its health effects to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. The number of people living alone has been rising across every age group for decades. The traditional social structures that once filled that gap have been thinning out faster than new ones have formed. Aria is one answer to that gap, though calling it an answer raises its own set of questions. Aria comes in 2 versions. The full standing model costs $175,000. The head-only bust version comes in at $12,000, which puts it in reach of a much wider market than the full unit. The head alone does a significant amount of what the full unit does, because the face is where most human social interaction actually happens. The facial assembly uses 17 micromotors to produce genuine-looking expressions, not a menu of preset faces. Actual muscular style movement that produces the small, specific expressions people read instinctively without being able to name them. The snap-on facial system allows for swappable faces with distinct personality profiles, which is either a fascinating design choice or a deeply unsettling one depending on how long you think about it. What Aria represents is a company taking seriously the idea that the loneliness problem is real, persistent, and not going to solve itself. Whether a robot is the right solution to that problem is a different conversation. That the market exists is not really in question anymore. Fooling the face. The Headform Origin phone took a specific approach to the problem of human perception. Instead of building a full body, it focused entirely on the head. The reasoning was that the face is where human perception is most sensitive and most difficult to fool. If the face works, the interaction works. The head is built from medical-grade silicone. The texture and translucency of the material produces light interaction that looks more like skin than earlier synthetic materials did. The facial geometry is modeled from real human proportions rather than averaging out to something that reads as slightly off. The technology inside uses a dual architecture. One system handles visual recognition, tracking the person in front of it, and reading their expressions and movements. A second system handles natural language processing, generating and delivering responses. The two systems work together so that the robot is reacting to the user's actual presence in real time, rather than responding to text input and then generating a facial expression separately. The result is a device that holds eye contact, responds to shifts in the person's expression, and changes its own expression in ways that feel reactive rather than programmed. Whether it feels that way because it is genuinely reactive or because the simulation is good enough to produce the same effect, is the kind of question that is getting harder to answer from the outside. The high-end option. X Robots builds at the expensive end of the market. Their androids are priced above $200,000 and described as museum grade, which is both a marketing term and an accurate description of the construction quality. The physical realism goes further than most competitors at this price point. The skin maintains a warmth that matches human body temperature. The chest produces a visible rising and falling motion that simulates breathing. The joints contain micro-tremors, small, irregular movements that keep the body from holding completely still the way a machine at rest naturally would. Humans are always slightly in motion. The engineers at X Robots modeled that into the hardware. The applications being tested are significant. X Robots androids are in active use in psychological counseling environments and emotional health screening settings. The reasoning is that some people communicate more honestly with a face that does not carry the social weight of a real human therapist. The absence of genuine human judgment, even if the android produces something that looks like judgment, creates a different conversational dynamic. Early results from these testing environments have been interesting enough that the research is continuing. At $200,000, this is not a consumer product, it is an institutional tool. But the technology developed at this price point tends to move down market over time, which means what is being tested in clinical settings today may be in consumer products within a decade. The affordable entry. Exla approached the market from the opposite direction. Instead of starting at the premium end and working down, Exla aimed directly at everyday consumers with a price point near $4,000. The design reflects this. The features are stylized and approachable rather than hyper-realistic. Exla is built to read as a friendly machine rather than as something attempting to pass as human. The face is simplified. The movement range is narrower than the higher-end units. The conversation capability handles basic tasks and general interaction rather than deep emotional modeling. The target demographic is the growing population of single adults who live alone. Not people who want to replace human relationships, but people who want something responsive in the space around them. Something that notices when they come home. Something that can hold a simple conversation at the end of the day without requiring the emotional reciprocity that human relationships demand. $4,000 is still not an impulse purchase for most households, but it is within range of a considered consumer decision in a way that $129,000 is not. Exla is betting that the market at this price point is much larger than the market at the top end, and the early order numbers suggest they are probably right. The Deep Companion. Droid Up Moya is built for something more specific than general companionship. The design intent is deep personal connection, which is a phrase that means different things depending on who is reading it. At $170,000, Moya sits in the premium companion category. The core technology processes complex social cues and adapts to context in ways that produce something closer to an ongoing relationship than a series of discrete interactions. The system builds a model of the individual user over time. It remembers previous conversations. It tracks preferences and patterns. It adjusts its communication style based on what it has learned about the person it is talking to. The social context that Moya is designed for is the same one Arya addresses: modern isolation. The difficulty of maintaining meaningful human connection in environments that have structurally reduced the opportunities for it. The specific difference is that Moya is designed to be a persistent presence, rather than an on-demand interaction. It is designed to feel like a friendship, rather than a service. Whether that is a meaningful distinction or a marketing one is something users are going to have to decide for themselves. The technology can produce the functional characteristics of friendship. Whether it produces the thing that makes friendship matter is a harder question that the spec sheet does not answer. The academic origin. Jia started as a research project at the University of Science and Technology of China, rather than as a commercial product. The design philosophy was different from anything the consumer-facing companies were doing at the time. The team modeled Jia's facial features by combining characteristics from 5 students, aiming to produce a face that human perception would read as aesthetically harmonious, rather than as optimized for any particular type. The underlying research question was whether the aesthetic principles that humans apply when evaluating other humans could be systematically integrated into robotic design. The answer turned out to be yes. What Jia proved in an academic context, the mass production companies have been building on commercially ever since. The insight that human aesthetic response follows learnable patterns, and that those patterns can be engineered into physical design, was the conceptual foundation for most of the premium companion robots that followed. The university did not build a product. It built a proof of concept that the industry then turned into a market, the robot that sold art. Ida is the hardest robot on this list to categorize, and also the one that generated the most cultural discussion. Ida is built as an AI artist. Camera eyes scan the subject. A precision mechanical arm executes the painting. The output is an original portrait, not a reproduction. Ida analyzes what it sees and makes decisions about how to represent it on canvas in the same way a human painter does, except that the decisions emerge from a system trained on millions of human artworks rather than from lived experience. In late 2024, a portrait Ida painted of Alan Turing sold at Sotheby's for over $1 million. The auction house that handles some of the most significant art transactions in the world put a 7-figure price on work produced by a machine. The buyer understood what they were purchasing. The cultural question this raises is not really about Ida specifically. It is about what creativity is and whether it requires consciousness to be genuine. The people who argue it does have a strong philosophical case. The people who paid over $1 million for Ida's painting made a different argument with their wallet. Both positions are internally consistent. The interesting thing is that both positions now have to be held simultaneously because the world Ida exists in requires it. Who is winning? China accounts for roughly 85% of global humanoid robot production. That number is large enough to be worth saying twice because it tends to land differently the second time. The manufacturing scale that produces that number did not emerge overnight. It is the result of sustained investment in supply chains, factory infrastructure, and engineering talent across a decade of coordinated development. The cost advantages this produces are significant. The Engine AI PM01 costs $12,000. That price is only possible because the micro-actuators inside it are manufactured locally, at a scale that makes each unit cheap enough to pass the savings to the consumer. An American company building the same robot with imported components would face a very different price point. The United States and other Western countries lead in foundational neural software and AI architecture. The large language models that give these robots conversational capability, the visual processing systems that let them read emotions, and the deep learning frameworks that allow them to adapt over time are still disproportionately developed in San Francisco and a handful of other technical centers. The tension between American software innovation and Chinese manufacturing scale is the defining dynamic of this industry right now. Neither side has the full stack alone. The companies that figure out how to bridge that gap effectively are going to have a significant structural advantage as the market grows. The marathon robot. Honor Lightning ran a half marathon, 13.1 miles, in 50 minutes and 26 seconds.
One manufacturer says its humanoid bot has already run faster than Usain Bolt.
Fully autonomous, no remote control, no human guidance. Honor was spun off from Huawei, which gives it a specific engineering DNA. The company built Lightning in under 12 months, which is a development timeline that most hardware companies would consider extremely aggressive even for a simpler product. A humanoid robot capable of sustained autonomous locomotion over 13 miles in 50 minutes is not a simple product. The physical design shows where the engineering priorities were. Lightning stands 5 feet 7 inches tall. The knees are designed with a bird-like geometry that provides mechanical advantage for sustained movement. The torque output is 295 pound-feet, which is more than enough for the locomotion demands the half marathon required. What the run demonstrated was not just that a robot could cover the distance. It demonstrated that the hardware could sustain performance under real-world conditions for an extended period without human intervention. That capability is what makes Lightning interesting to industrial and logistics customers in a way that a lab demonstration would not. The face without a body. Headform Schwen made a very different engineering choice from Lightning. It cannot walk, but that limitation was intentional. The engineering team decided early that adding movement to the body was less important than making the face as expressive as possible. Instead of trying to build a robot that could do everything, they focused on one ability and pushed it much further. Schwen has 30 individual facial muscles. That number matters because facial expression depends on small movements that are easy to miss but important to how humans read emotion. A face with 8 or 10 actuators can create basic expressions, but 30 allows much finer control. The robot can create slight changes around the eyes, cheeks, mouth, and other parts of the face. These small movements can help make a smile look more natural and can create differences between expressions that might otherwise appear artificial. Humans make many of these movements without thinking. A genuine smile can involve changes around the eyes, while uncertainty or concern can appear through tiny shifts in the eyebrows and mouth. Reproducing those details requires more control than most robots dedicate to their faces. Schwen is designed around that idea, using its limited hardware to create a much wider range of visible expressions. The robot later performed at a gala in Shanghai, making the event an important test of its design. A live performance puts a robotic face under pressure. The audience sees it from different distances, watches its movements in real time, and judges whether the expressions feel believable. Schwen could be useful in performance art, customer service, and education, where walking matters less than communication. Its design shows that focusing on one human ability can create a more interesting robot. The factory worker. UB Walker S2 is not trying to look like a human companion. It is trying to do human-level factory work at industrial scale, and it is succeeding in a way that is moving markets. Walker S2 is deployed at NIO's electric vehicle factory. Real production environment. Real production demands. The robot handles heavy manufacturing tasks that were previously human jobs. The most operationally significant capability is battery self-swapping. Walker S2 can replace its own power source in under 3 minutes, which means it can operate continuously without extended downtime. A factory tool that never needs to stop for long is a fundamentally different proposition than one that requires hours of downtime for maintenance or recharging. The commercial response has been correspondingly significant. More than $112 million in orders have come in. A single contract, worth $35 million, was signed with one customer. These are not pilot program numbers. These are industrial procurement numbers from buyers who have done the financial analysis and concluded that the unit economics work. Walker S2 is the robot that is currently doing the most to change what manufacturers consider possible in automated production. It is not the most interesting robot to look at. It is the most consequential one to watch. The doctoral student. DroidUp Juba01 is officially enrolled as a doctoral student at the Shanghai Theater Academy. That sounds almost like a joke, but it is actually part of a serious experiment into what happens when robots enter spaces that were designed entirely for humans. Juba01 is studying emotional storytelling, human gestures, performance, and human-machine interaction. It attends classes and takes part in the academic environment alongside human students. But the most interesting part is not simply what the robot is learning, it is what the humans around it are learning. Researchers are watching how teachers and students react to a machine that has been given a role normally reserved for a person. Do they speak to it differently? Do they become more comfortable with it over time? Do they eventually stop thinking of it as a machine at all? The answers could reveal something important about how humans may live and work with robots in the future. The study is designed to continue for several years, allowing researchers to collect data over a much longer period than a normal classroom experiment. They can track how people's behavior changes after months or years of regular interaction with Juba01. That makes the project unusual. Most robot studies happen in controlled laboratories, where researchers can carefully manage every interaction. Juba01 is being placed in a real social environment, surrounded by students, teachers, conversations, routines, and unexpected situations. In other words, the robot is not simply being tested. The people around it are being studied too. And when the results eventually emerge, they could offer a rare look at what happens when robots stop being machines we simply observe and start becoming members of everyday society. The cheap one. Engine AI PM01 costs $12,000. In a market where most humanoid robots cost well over $100,000, that price is not a small improvement. It changes what people can expect to pay for a humanoid robot. For the first time, advanced humanoid technology is moving closer to a price that smaller companies, schools, and other organizations could realistically afford. The engineering behind this price is closely connected to the supply chain. The micro-actuators that control the robot's movements are made locally and produced at a scale that helps keep costs low. This allows the PM01 to reach its retail price while still keeping important capabilities. The robot also has 320 degrees of waist rotation, giving it a range of movement that can go beyond the human body in certain situations. That could make it useful for tasks that require unusual movement or flexibility. But the most important part may be the robot's open hardware and software design. Developers around the world can build their own applications for the PM01 platform. A hospital in Brazil could program it for a specific medical support task. A school in Germany could configure it for education or classroom assistance. A logistics company in Canada could create software for warehouse work or develop an application that the original company never considered. This kind of open platform can help technology spread much faster. When more developers can access the hardware, new ideas can appear from places the manufacturer never expected. One company does not have to discover every possible use on its own. Instead, the developer community becomes part of the innovation process. That is how many consumer technology markets grow. Prices become lower, platforms become easier to access, and developers discover new uses. If Engine AI can keep the PM01 affordable while expanding what it can do, the robot could become more than another humanoid machine. It could become a platform for a much larger market. The healthcare robot. Fourier GR1 was built by a company that started with exoskeleton technology and rehabilitation hardware. That origin matters because it shaped both the physical design of the robot and the engineering culture behind it. GR1 has 40 degrees of freedom, 40 individual joints capable of independent movement. That range allows for the kind of precise, gentle, physical interaction that healthcare applications demand. The robot can lift 110 pounds and walk at over 3 miles per hour, which covers the physical demands of most clinical assistance tasks. The company's background in patient interaction means the design philosophy prioritizes safety and gentleness in ways that industrial robotics does not need to. A factory robot that makes contact with a product faces different constraints than a robot that makes contact with a human body. GR1 is designed for the latter, and the engineering reflects that priority throughout. Active testing in medical clinics for physical therapy and elder care is producing results that the company has been using to refine the hardware. The feedback loop between clinical deployment and engineering iteration is faster than it would be in a pure research context, which means GR1 is improving based on real interaction data rather than lab simulations. The one to watch. Xiaomi Cyber 1 spent a long time in development before the company was ready to show it to investors. The unveiling suggests Xiaomi believes it is ready to be taken seriously as a humanoid robotics player, which is a significant statement from a company that built its reputation on consumer electronics. The hands are 60% more compact than previous versions, which matters for the range of tasks the robot can perform in domestic environments. Larger hands create clearance problems in spaces designed for human bodies. The thermal cooling system is modeled after human sweat glands, which is the kind of biomimetic engineering that tends to generate headlines, but also represents a genuine solution to a real problem. Heat management in densely packed electronics remains a fundamental challenge, and borrowing a solution from biology is often more effective than engineering one from scratch. The capability numbers are meaningful. A 90.2% success rate at assembling its own components demonstrates a level of dexterity that industrial applications can use. Recognition of 45 emotional states is a significant expansion of the social intelligence capability built into the platform. The reason Xiaomi Cyber 1 matters more than its specs alone would suggest is the company behind it. Xiaomi has existing factory infrastructure, established software pipelines, and brand loyalty across millions of households in multiple markets. If humanoid robots are going to reach private residences at scale, the company that gets there first is going to need all three of those things. Xiaomi already has them. 8 robots now target companionship, factories, medicine, education, and art, while prices fall dramatically. The question is no longer if humanoids will arrive, but who leads. Subscribe, because the next generation of these robots is already in development, and this story moves faster than almost any other in technology right now.